friends, welcome to English Minds. Welcome to this comprehensive series on John Milton covering all competitive exams like TGT, PGT, UGC NET, assistant professor and so on. This part focuses on Milton's life, major works, themes, style and influences. We explored his poetic genius, biblical inspiration, and literary impact. Get ready for exam focused, concise, and insightful question to master Milton's legacy. Let's begin. Who made the statement poetry as a mirror is a mirror in which the writer's character is very clearly reflected? Option A, variety petition. Made this statement about poetry, emphasizing that a poet's works reflect their characters, emotions, and thoughts. Poetry is often seen as a form of self expression where personal beliefs, philosophies, and inner struggles become evident. This idea aligns with romantic theories of poetry, where poets like Wordsworth believed poetry was a spontaneous overflow of powerful feeling. Poetry, a spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings. The period known as the Age of Milton is option B 1625 to 1660. The age of Milton 1625 to 1660 corresponds to the Caroline and Puritan age, covering Charles I's reign. Charles I 1625 to 49 and the Commonwealth under Oliver Cromwell 1649 to 1660. Milton's major works, including Paradise Lost, Areopagitica, and Lycidas, were producing during or shortly after this period. It was marked by political turmoil, Puritan influence, and a civil war. 1642 Civil War. 1642 to 1651. The age of Milton had three kinds of poets. Option A, religious. The age of Milton had three kinds of poets: metaphysical, cavalier, and Puritan. Metaphysical, cavalier, and Puritan. So option B is correct answer. The age of Milton is also known as a Puritan age 1625 to 1660. The poets of this period are usually called the Caroline poets. The term Caroline is derived from the Latin word carolus, which stands for Charles. Cavalier poets supported King Charles I during the Civil War, were mostly secular in their poetry, included Robert Herrick, Richard Lovelace, Sir John Suckling, and Thomas Carew. And metaphysical poets explored philosophy, used colloquial language, used conceit and irony, had flexible lines. John Donne was a leading metaphysical poet. Other metaphysical poets, including Henry Vaughan, Andrew Marvell, and Abraham Cowley. Then Puritan poets were part of a radical Protestant movement to reform the Church of England, included John Milton and Bradstreet, Edward Tyler, and John Dryden. The age of Milton was a time of political and religious strife, including the Civil War, the triumph of Puritanism, and the Restoration. John Milton was a prominent poet and political pamphleteer of the period. His masterpiece is Paradise Lost, which is considered one of the greatest epic in English literature. Paradise Lost was written by Milton in the option B last phase of his life. Milton wrote Paradise Lost between 1658 to 1665 and first published in 1667 and second revised version 1674. 1667 in 10 books and revised version 12 books. The last phase of Milton's life was deeply political and religious, with his works reflecting his Puritan beliefs and disillusionment with the Restoration, which of the following is a masque written by Milton? Option A, Comus, 1634, is a masque from a form of a dramatic entertainment popular in the early 17th century. It was for the Earl of Bridgewater children and performed at Ludlow Castle. Ludlow Castle, Ludlow Castle. It promotes Puritan ideals of chastity and virtue against temptation. Other choices: Lycidas, an elegy; Areopagitica, a prose treatise for on free speech. In which poem does the following statement: solitude sometimes is best society? Option C, Paradise Lost. This line appears in Paradise Lost, Book 9. Spoken by Eve before she is tempted by Satan. The phrase reflects the theme of isolation and foreshadows the fall of man. It suggests sometimes being alone is better than bad company or temptation. Milton Sampson agonists is Sampson agonist is a closet drama. Option D. And the classical tragedy written in the style of Greek tragedies by Sophocles and Aeschylus, which means it's better suited for reading than performing, is a closet drama. It was published in 1671 in the same volume as Milton's epic poem Paradise Regained. Samson Agonist was written to be read in small groups rather than staged. It well structured, suited to this because it explored theological concepts such as divine justice. Milton was likely more concerned with philosophical and spiritual discourse than with advancing a particular plot. What is a closet drama? So, a closet drama is a drama that's primarily suited for reading rather than production. Another examples of closet drama is Thomas Hardy, The Dynasties, the Dynasts. Oh God. Dynasts in 1903 to 8. Thomas Hardy. Thomas Hardy. Samson Agonist is a tragic drama based on the biblical story of Samson. The play focuses on Samson's idle and tangent stage as a prisoner of the Palestine. In the year 1637, Milton confided to his friend that he had fixed his mind upon writing some monumental poetical works. Select among the following the name of his friend to whom this information was given. Option Option D is correct answer. Charles Duty was Milton's closest friend from his school days at St. Paul's. In a letter 1637, Milton confided him in him about his aspirations to write a great epic, which later became Paradise Lost. His correspondence with Duty reveals deep intellectual discussion and literary ambitions. Richard Powell was the father of Mary Powell, Milton's first wife. He was a staunch royalist and had conflicts with Milton, who was Puritan. There is no record for Milton sharing his literary aspiration with him. चार्ल्स ड्यूडिटी मिल्टन के सबसे करीबी मित्र थे। 1637 में मिल्टन ने उन्हें पत्र लिखकर बताया था कि वह एक महान काव्य रचना करने का मन बना चुके हैं, जो बाद में पैराडाइज लॉस्ट के रूप में सामने आई। Who overcomes by force hath overcome, but half his foe in the lines occur in. Option B, Paradise Lost. These lines appears in Paradise Lost 1667. Book 6. It is spoken by the Archangel Gabriel, Gabriel, emphasizing that true victory is not achieved by force alone but by moral and spiritual superiority. This reflects Milton's theme of divine justice and the futility of physical power in contrast to righteousness. यह पंक्ति मिल्टन के महाकाव्य पैराडाइज लॉस्ट 1667 के छठे खंड से आती है। इसमें आर्क एंजल देवदूत गैब्रियल कहता है कि जो यह संदेश देते हैं कि केवल बल प्रयोग से कोई अस्थायी विजय नहीं मिलती, बल्कि नैतिक और आध्यात्मिक श्रेष्ठता ही सच्ची जीत होती है। Venus and Adonis, written by William Shakespeare, 1593. Tintin Abbey, 1798. Christabel, 1797 to 1800. Samuel Taylor Coleridge. Next, who of the following became blind? Option A, John Milton. Milton lost his eyesight completely in 1652, likely due to glaucoma. Glucoma. His increasing blindness did not stop for him from composing Paradise Lost, which he dedicated to Eunice, including his daughters. His famous sonnet on his blindness reflects his acceptance of divine will regarding his condition. मिल्टन 1652 तक पूरी तरह अंधे हो गए थे, संभवतः ग्लूकोमा के कारण, लेकिन उन्होंने अपनी दृष्टिहीनता को अपनी साहित्यिक यात्रा में बाधा नहीं बनने दिया। उन्होंने पैराडाइज लॉस्ट जैसी महान रचनाओं को अपने सहायकों और पुत्रियों के माध्यम से लिखवाया। उनकी कविता ऑन हिज ब्लाइंडनेस इस पीड़ा को व्यक्त करती है। The woman character Dalila appears in. Option B. Samson agonists. The mind in its own place, and it itself can make a heaven of hell, a hell of heaven occurs in. Option D. Paradise Lost. यह पंक्ति पैराडाइज लॉस्ट के पहले भाग बुक फर्स्ट में सैटन द्वारा कही गई है। इसका अर्थ है व्यक्ति की मानसिक स्थिति ही उसके सुख और दुख का निर्धारण करती है। पैराडाइज लॉस्ट 1667 महाकाव्य एपिक पोएम है जो मानव के पतन, शैतान की बगावत और ईश्वर के न्याय पर आधारित है। The author of Samson Agonist was Option C. John Milton. सैमसन ऑगनिस्ट जॉन मिल्टन द्वारा लिखी गई 1671 में एक ट्रेजेडी है। यह एक क्लोजेट ड्रामा है जो पढ़ने के लिए लिखे गए नाटक का उदाहरण है। इसमें ग्रीक ट्रेजेडी की शैली अपनाई गई है और यह मिल्टन के अपने अंधत्व, ब्लाइंडनेस और राजनीति विफलता को दिखाता है। Of which poem is the following line apart for them no more the blazing heart shall burn? Option C. Grace LG. Option C. Grace LG. Thomas Gray completed in 1750 and first published in 1751. The poem origins are unknown, but it was partially inspired by Gray's thought following the death of the Richard West in 1742. Originally titled Stanzas, wrote in a country churchyard, the poem was completed when Gray is living near the church of St. Giles, Stoke. It was sent to his friend Horace Walpole. Gray was eventually forced to publish the work on 15th February 1751 in order to preempt the magazine publisher from printing an unlicensed copy of them. This poem is elegy. Milton was Option A. An Elizabethan poet. Option B. A belated Elizabethan poet. So option B is correct answer. Paradise Regained was the work of Option A. John Milton. Paradise Regained 1671. is a poem by English poet John Milton, first published in 1671. The volume in which it appeared also contained the poet's closet drama, Samson Agonist. Paradise Regained and is connected by the name to his earlier and most famous epic poem, Paradise Lost, with which it shares similar theological themes. Indeed, this title, its use of blank verse, and its progression through Christian history recall the earlier work. However, the effort deals primarily with the temptation of Christ and recounted in the Gospel of Luke. Genre, epic poem and religious. Epic poem. And publication place Kingdom of England. Preceded by Paradise Lost. Paradise Regained, a poem in four books, to which is an added Samson Agonist. Who among the following was not a British citizen? Option D. Catherine Frank. When Satan says, "O merits of immortal spirits, O powers matchless but with the Almighty," and that strife was not through the event was dire, and as the place testifies in Paradise Lost book first, he is addressing option B, followers. In these lines, Satan, in speaking to his fallen angels after their defeat in heaven, he encourages them by saying that their battle against God was glorious even though they lost. This is part of Satan's speech in hell, where he realizes his army of fallen angels, including Beelzebub and Mammon. इन पंक्तियों में सैटन अपने गिरे हुए स्वर्गदूतों फॉलोवर्स को संबोधित कर रहा है। वह उन्हें प्रोत्साहित करता है, हालांकि वे युद्ध हार गए हैं, लेकिन उनकी लड़ाई सम्मानजनक थी। यह नरक में सैटन के भाषण का हिस्सा है, जहां वह अपने अनुयायियों बेल्जेबब, मैमन आदि को संगठित करता है। What does Milton mean by the word ferment? In the lines now glowed the ferment with living spirits, harpers and lit in Paradise Lost Book 4, line 605. Option B, sky. पैराडाइज लॉस्ट में फायरमैन का अर्थ है आकाश, स्काई। यह बाइबल के उत्पत्ति ग्रंथ जेनेसिस, GENESIS जेनेसिस से लिया गया है, जहां इसका अर्थ स्वर्ग और पृथ्वी के बीच का विस्तार है। मिल्टन सितारों से भरे आकाश की तुलना स्फेयर मतलब नीलम से की चमक से करता है। Which of the following statement is true of Milton's Paradise Lost? Option B. Paradise Lost is a Renaissance Protestant English epic. Paradise Lost 1667 is considered as a Renaissance epic because it reflects humanism, individualism, and classic influence. It is also a Protestant epic because it promotes Puritan beliefs and focuses on the fall of man and divine justice. It is not a Roman Catholic or Virgilian epic as it follows the Protestant theological tradition. पैराडाइज लॉस्ट एक पुनर्जागरण रेनेसांस और प्रोटेस्टेंट महाकाव्य है। इसमें मानवतावाद, इंडिविजुअलिज्म, व्यक्तिवाद एंड शास्त्रीय प्रभाव देखने को मिलता है। यह प्यूरिटन विचारधारा पर आधारित है और मानव पतन और ईश्वरीय न्याय की चर्चा करता है। यह रोमन कैथोलिक महाकाव्य नहीं है क्योंकि इसमें प्रोटेस्टेंट परंपराओं को दर्शाया गया है। In Book First of Paradise Lost, Milton invokes the heavenly muse Urania. She is the muse of option D, astronomy. Urania is the Greek muse of astronomy and celestial knowledge. Milton invokes her as his divine inspiration in Paradise Lost, aligning her with the Holy Spirit. Unlike classical poets who called upon Calliope, the muse of epic poetry, Milton seeks divine guidance for his religious epic. यूरेनिया एस्ट्रोनॉमी की यूनानी देवी है जिसको म्यूज कहते हैं। पैराडाइज लॉस्ट में मिल्टन उन्हें पवित्र प्रेरणा के रूप में आमंत्रित किया करते हैं। वे क्लासिकल महाकाव्यों की देवी कैलियोप CALLIOPE के स्थान पर यूरेनिया को बुलाते हैं। क्योंकि वह ईश्वरीय मार्गदर्शन चाहते थे। नेक्स्ट, मिल्टन हैज कंपोज्ड द मैग्निफिसेंट एपिक ऑफ पैराडाइज लॉस्ट इन ऑप्शन ए अनराइम्ड iambic pentameter. Unrhymed iambic pentameter. Paradise Lost in written in blank verse, which is unrhymed iambic pentameter. It follows the structure of English heroic words without rhyme but maintains a grand style. Milton rejected grand style. Milton rejected rhyme, calling it a troublesome bondage, and used natural flowing rhythm instead. पैराडाइज लॉस्ट ब्लैंक वर्स में लिखा गया है जो अनियमित अनराइम्ड आइएम्बिक पेंटामीटर है। इसमें काव्यात्मक प्रवाह बनाए रखने के लिए राइम का प्रयोग नहीं किया गया है। मिल्टन ने तुकबंदी को एक अनावश्यक बाध्यता बताया था और इसके बजाय स्वाभाविक ताल का प्रयोग किया था। नेक्स्ट, The fall of Saturn as depicted in Book First of Paradise Lost lasted for option B 7 days. After rebelling against God, Saturn and his fallen angels were cast into hell. The fall lasted 7 days at night, symbolizing their punishment and suffering. This is part of Milton's theological narrative emphasizing divine justice. 7 दिनों तक सैटर्न ने और उसके अनुयायी स्वर्ग से नर्क में गिरते रहे। यह उनके विद्रोह और दंड का प्रतीक है। मिल्टन ने इसे ईश्वरीय न्याय और दंड की प्रक्रिया के रूप में दर्शाया है। Who said that Milton belongs to the devil party without knowing it? Option B, option A, William Blake, 1757 to 1827. The prison, the person who said that Milton belongs to the devil's party without knowing it is William Blake. This statement refers to Blake's interpretations of John Milton Paradise Lost, where he believes Milton unintentionally portrays Satan as a more compelling and sympathetic character than God, effectively siding with the devils in the narrative. Blake believed that Milton, as a true poet, was drawn to the energy and rebellious spirit embodied by Satan, even though he was writing from a supposedly Christian perspective. This view aligns with Romantic literary movement, which often valued individual freedom and defiance against authority, qualities they saw reflected in Satan characters. When I consider how my light is spent is one of the best known sonnets of option B, John Milton. It is a line from a sonnet by John Milton, widely known as On His Blindness. On His Blindness, and the famous for its exploration of the poet's struggle with blindness and his contemplation of how to serve God despite his disability. The phrase light is spent, metaphorically means metaphor, means lost sight. Milton's lost sight. SIGHT. The light represents Milton's sight, which he has lost, and spent means used up or gone. यह मिल्टन के प्रसिद्ध सोनेट 19 जिसे ऑन हिज ब्लाइंडनेस भी कहा जाता है, इसमें उनकी दृष्टिहीनता और ईश्वर के आस्था का चित्रण किया गया है। यह दे आल्सो सर्व हु ओनली स्टैंड एंड वेट पंक्ति के लिए प्रसिद्ध है। Who among the following started his writing first? Option A, William Shakespeare, 1564 to 1616. Began writing in the 1590th century with early plays like Titus Andronicus and Henry VI. John Milton, 1608 to 1674, started writing much later, publishing El Allegro and ill pens ratio. In the 16th, 30th, William Wordsworth, 1770 to 1850, published his first work in 1719, An Evening Walk. An Evening Walk. And next, P.G. Wodehouse, 1881 to 1975, 20th century writer. Next, let us not mine in hell, since there is more content to life in liberty through all condemned, that than as his Vanals blast. Who speaks these lines? Option B, Satan in Paradise Lost. These lines are spoken by Satan in Paradise Lost. He refuses to submit to God and embrace liberty in hell over servitude in heaven. This reflects Milton's theme of free will and rebellion. ये पंक्तियां सैटन लॉस्ट पैराडाइज लॉस्ट में कहता है वह स्वर्ग में दासता की बजाय नर्क में स्वतंत्रता को चुनता है। यह मिल्टन की स्वतंत्र इच्छा और विद्रोह की थीम को दर्शाता है। In an international culture of poets, Milton and Shakespeare would represent the English nation. Who said this? Option A, Mark Pattison, 1813 to 1884. Mark Pattison is a literary critic. Made this statement, he emphasized that Shakespeare and Milton are greatest representative of English literature on a global stage. मार्क पेटिशन ने कहा कि शेक्सपियर और मिल्टन इंटरनेशनल लेवल पर अंग्रेजी साहित्य का प्रतिनिधित्व करते हैं। Nor second he that rode sublime upon the seraph wings of ecstasy, he saw, but blasted with beams of light, chased his eyes in endless light. Who said this about? Option B, Thomas Gray. Thomas Gray, 1716 to 1771, wrote these lines, The Progress of Poesy. He compares Milton to a prophet blinded by divine vision, referring to his blindness. In the opening line, A Paradise Lost are a good example. Option B, Miltonic inversion. Miltonic inversion. Milton's opening lines of man first disobedience and the fruit. He uses Miltonic inversion where he usual word order is changed for poetic and dramatic effect. The style emphasizes the grandeur of epic poetry. Miltonic inversion are unusual word orders used by the 17th century poet John Milton in his writing. These inversions are also known as hyperbaton. hyper, love without end and without measure grace, anastrophe, servant of God, well done, well hast thou fought the better fight, who single had maintained against revolted multitudes. Where do these lines appear? Option C. Paradise Lost, Book 12. These line appears in Book 12 of Paradise Lost. The Archangel Michael speaks them to Adam after narrating the consequences of the fall and mankind redemptions. The phrase better fight refers to Adam's spiritual struggle and faith. ये पंक्तियां बुक 12 से आती हैं जहां माइकल ने एडम को भविष्य में आने वाली घटनाओं की जानकारी दी। बेटर फाइट का अर्थ है एडम की आत्मिक और नैतिक लड़ाई। Who appointed Milton to the post of Latin secretary? Option A. Oliver Cromwell. Oliver Cromwell, the Lord Protector, England, appointed John Milton as a Latin secretary in 1649. Milton's role was to handle foreign correspondence in Latin. Despite his growing blindness, he continued his role in this role until 1660. If Milton was Puritan, he was also more than a Puritan. This statement is of option B, Mark Petition. Mark Petition, a 19th century critic, stated this. He meant that while Milton was influenced by Puritan ideals, he also had classical and humanist influences. Milton's works saw a mix of Puritan faith, political activism, and Renaissance learning. मार्क पेटिशन ने कहा कि मिल्टन पूरी तरह से प्यूरिटन नहीं थे, बल्कि प्यूरिटनवाद से अधिक थे। उनके विचारों में प्यूरिटन आदर्शों के साथ साथ पुनर्जागरण और मानवतावादी दृष्टिकोण भी था। Who said that Milton was a passionate man who lived in passionate time? Option D is Samuel Johnson. Samuel Johnson, John. Not these. The phrase Milton was a passionate man who lived in passionate time is most commonly attributed to Johnson, who wrote about John Milton of his Life of Milton. Life of Milton. Lives of English, included in his collection Lives of the English Poets. Johnson was referring to Milton's strong political views and active involvement in the turbulent of English Commonwealth period, where he wrote pamphlets defending the execution of the King Charles I. Next, who described The fall of Saturn in Paradise Lost as blasted with beams of light. Option A. Thomas Gray. Thomas Gray describes Saturn's falls and these words, the progress of poesy. The phrase suggests that Saturn was overwhelmed by divine light and cast into darkness. The poetic image highlights Milton's grand and dramatic depiction of Saturn's downfall. थॉमस ग्रे ने अपनी कविता द प्रोग्रेस ऑफ पोएजी में कहा कि सैटर्न दिव्य प्रकाश से पराजित हुआ। यह पैराडाइज लॉस्ट में सैटर्न के पतन का नाटकीय चित्रण है। In which book of Paradise Lost does Saturn declare better to reign in hell than serve in heaven? Option B, book second. This famous line is spoken by Saturn and says that it is better to rule over, be like a king in hell than to serve somebody and slave in heaven. The lines Hail, holy light, offspring of heaven, firstborn or of the eternal beam are from option A, Paradise Lost. These lines are book third of Paradise Lost. Milton, who had become blind, begins this book with an invocation to holy light symbolizing divine wisdom. What is the main antagonist in Paradise Lost? Option A, Saturn. In the Paradise Lost, who says that famous line, what though the field we lost, all is not lost, the unconquerable will. Option A, Saturn. Where was John Milton born? Option B, Bridge Street, London. Side. John Milton was born in 9 December 1608. His father was a scrivener and the composer of, and the family was well off. What was John Milton's father's occupation? Option A was he was a music composer. Where did John Milton receive his education? Option B Option B St Paul's School, London and Cambridge University. Milton studied at St Paul's School, London, where he received a strong foundation in Latin, Greek, and classical literature, and he later attended Christ College, Cambridge, where he earned his bachelor and master degree. Which college did John Milton attend at Cambridge University? Option B, Christ College. Milton enrolled at Christ College, Cambridge in 1625. He earned a BA in 1629 and an MA in 1632. He was called the Lady of Christ due to his delicate appearance and refined manners. At what age at what age did John Milton enroll at St. Paul's School in London? Option B 12. John Milton enrolled at St. Paul's School at the age of 12. Here he studied Latin, Greek, Hebrew, and classical literature, where heavily influenced his poetry. What was John Milton's first datable composition? Option C. Sum Up at the age of 15. In 1624. In which year did John Milton compose On the Morning of Christ's Nativity? In 1629. The ode was written in 1629 while Milton was studying at Cambridge. It was one of several well-known shorter English poems he wrote there. He was 21 years old. It is a celebration of Christ's birth and the considered of Milton's earliest great works. Which tutor did John Milton have at Cambridge University in 1636? Option A. William Chappell. Who was John Milton's first wife? Option A. Mary Powell. Milton's first wife was Mary Powell, whom he married in 1642. But she left him shortly after. He married Catherine Woodcock 1656, but she died after 2 years later. At the end, he married Elizabeth Minsul, Mynsul, and in 1667. First wife John Milton's first wife was Mary Powell. They married in 1642. She was from a royalist family, while Milton was a parliamentarian. She left him to return to live with her mother. She died in 1652, when Milton became totally blind. She died in 1652 during childbirth. And then 1656 he married Woodcock. After 2 years that she died, he married lastly Elizabeth Minsul in 1667. Okay. In which year did John Milton marry Mary Powell? Option A 1642. Which work by Milton was published in 1644 in support of press, free press? Option A Areopagitica. Areopagitica was published in 1644 as a pamphlet defending freedom of speech and the press. It was written in opposition to the licensing order of 1643, which imposed censorship in England. The title refers to Areopagus, the High Court of Ancient Athens. एरियोपेजिटिका को मिल्टन ने 1644 में प्रेस की स्वतंत्रता का समर्थन करने के लिए लिखा। यह 1643 में लाइसेंसिंग ऑर्डर के विरोध में था, जो अभिव्यक्ति की स्वतंत्रता पर प्रतिबंध लगाता था। इसका नाम एरियोपैगस एथेंस की प्राचीन सर्वोच्च अदालत पर आधारित है। In which year was John Milton's father John Milton's suffraged? Option C, 1631. John Milton's son was disinherited by his Catholic father because he converted to Protestantism. He became a successful scrivener and composer, which allowed him to support his son's education. By 1631, he was financially independent and freed from obligations. Which political event took place on January 30, 1649 that influenced John Milton? Option A, the execution of King Charles I. King Charles I was executed on 30th January 1649 during the English Civil War. Milton was a strong supporter of Oliver Cromwell and the Puritan cause. After the execution, he became Latin Secretary for Foreign Affairs and Cromwell government. Where did John Milton travel in 1638 for his European tour? Option B, Switzerland and Italy. 1638 में मिल्टन ने यूरोप की यात्रा की, जिसमें उन्होंने मुख्य रूप से स्विट्जरलैंड और इटली का दौरा किया। उन्होंने कई प्रसिद्ध विद्वानों, कवियों और वैज्ञानिकों जैसे गलीलियो से मुलाकात की। इंग्लैंड में राजनीतिक संकट के कारण उन्हें यह यात्रा जल्दी समाप्त करनी पड़ी। What significant event happened to Milton in 1652? Option B, he became blind. In 1652, John Milton became completely blind, likely due to glaucoma. Despite his blindness, he continued to write, dictating his work to his daughters and assistant. Paradise Lost was written after he became blind, dictated to an aside. Who was John Milton write his Lycidas as an elegy for? Option B, his friend Edward King. Lycidas 1637 is an elegy written by Milton for his friend Edward King, who drowned in a shipwreck. It follows a pastoral elegy tradition blending classical references with Christian themes. It was published in 1638 in a collection of poems by Cambridge University. Lycidas 1637 मिल्टन द्वारा उनके मित्र एडवर्ड किंग के लिए लिखी गई एक शोक कविता जो समुद्री दुर्घटना में डूब गए थे। यह एक पेस्टोरल एलिजी गणरीय शेफर्ड जिसमें क्लासिकल और ईसाई तत्वों का मिश्रण है। इसे 1638 में कैम्ब्रिज विश्वविद्यालय के कविताओं में के संग्रह में प्रकाशित किया गया था। In which year did John Milton become completely blind? Option A, 1652. Milton gradually lost his sight due to glaucoma or Rensial disease. By 1652, he was completely blind but continued to write by dictating to assistant and his daughter. Despite his blindness, he composed Paradise Lost, Paradise Regained, and Samson Agonists. Which poem did John Milton compose in 1637 as an elegy for his friend Edward King? Option A. Lycidas. Lycidas was written in 1637 after Edward King's tragic drowning. It mourns his loss but also criticized corruption in the church. It is one of the most famous pastoral elegy in English literature. What nickname was given to John Milton due to his views on divorce? Option C. Milton to divorce doctor. Milton wrote several treatises advocating to right to divorce on grounds of incompatibility. His famous work on divorce include The Doctrine and Disciplines of Divorce 1643. Because of his huge views, critics mockingly called him Milton the divorce doctor. What was the subject of Milton's Areopagitica, published in 1644? Option A. Support of prepress. In which year did John Milton compose the Epitaph of Shakespeare? Option C. 1630. Epitaph of Shakespeare is a short poem written by John Milton 1630. It was included in the second folio of Shakespeare's work in 1632. The poem praises Shakespeare's eternal literary legacy. Which of John Milton's works was a political pamphlet supporting the Commonwealth of England? Option C. The Tenure of Kings and Magistrates. Paradise Lost 1667. Areopagitica 1644. Option C. Tenure 1649. Was written to justify the execution of King Charles I. It supported Republican government and Cromwell's Commonwealth. Milton argued that kings could be removed if they ruled unjustly. द टेन्योर ऑफ किंग्स एंड मजिस्ट्रेट 1649 मिल्टन की एक राजनीतिक पुस्तक थी जिसमें किंग चार्ल्स के एग्जीक्यूशन को उचित ठहराया गया। इसमें इसमें कॉमनवेल्थ का समर्थन किया गया। मिल्टन ने तर्क दिया कि यदि राजा अन्यायपूर्ण शासन करता है तो उसे हटाया जा सकता है। What was John Milton's position under Oliver Cromwell's Commonwealth of England? Option B. Civil servant. Milton served as the Latin Secretary for Foreign Affairs in Cromwell's government. His role involved writing official state correspondence in Latin. Despite his progressive political views, he was later persecuted after the monarchy he was restored in 1660। मिल्टन ने क्रॉमवेल की सरकार में लैटिन सचिव के रूप में कार्य किया। उनका काम विदेशी मामलों से जुड़े दस्तावेजों को लैटिन में लिखना था। जब 1660 में राजतंत्र बहाल हुआ तो मिल्टन को उनके विचारों के लिए दंडित किया गया। Which event led to John Milton's short suspension from Cambridge University in 1636? Option B. Argument with his tutor William Chappell. Milton had a heated dispute with his tutor William Chappell at Christ College, Cambridge. As a result, he was temporarily suspended but later reinstated. Despite this, he completed his degree in 1632. मिल्टन और उनके ट्यूटर विलियम चैपल में के बीच बहस हुई, जिसके कारण उन्हें 1636 में अस्थायी रूप से निलंबित कर दिया गया था। उसके बाद फिर से प्रवेश दिया गया उन्हें 1632 में उन्होंने अपनी डिग्री पूरी कर ली थी। Which work was John Milton's? It's considered his major epic on the fall of man. Option A, Paradise Lost. Who was John Milton's second wife? Option B, Catherine Woodcock. Milton married Catherine Woodcock in 1560, 1656. Unfortunately, Catherine died in 1658. Along with their infant daughter, Milton later married Elizabeth Minsul, 1663. Which event happened in John Milton's life in 1647? Option B, his father's death. Sir Milton's father passed away in 1647. Milton was deeply affected by this loss. Around the same time, his financial situation worsened. What was one of the reasons for John Milton's unhappiness in his first marriage? Option C, Mary Powell returns to her family. Milton married Mary Powell in 1642, but soon after she left him and returned to her family. The couple had a troubled relationship. With this led Milton to write pamphlets advocating divorce right. Mary later reconciled with Milton in 1645. Which important document did John Milton publish in 1649 in support of the execution of King Charles I? Option A, the tenure of kings and magistrates. Published in 1649, this work defended the execution of King Charles I. Milton argued that kings should be accountable to the people and could be removed. It was a major political pamphlet supporting the Commonwealth of England. What was John Milton's primary occupation during the Commonwealth of England? Option B, civil servant and pamphleteer. Milton was appointed as Latin secretary under Oliver Cromwell's government. His role was to handle foreign correspondence and write political pamphlets. He wrote propaganda supporting the Republican government. When did John Milton die? Option A, November 1674. John Milton died on 8 November 1674 in London. He passed away due to and was buried in St. Giles, Cripplegate. Cripplegate. What significant work of John Milton was written after he became blind? Option B, Paradise Lost. Milton became completely blind in 1652. He dictated Paradise Lost, which was published in 1667. He later wrote Paradise Regained 1671 and Samson Agonists 1671. What was the title of John Milton's political pamphlet against censorship? Option B, Areopagitica. Areopagitica 1644 was written in defense of freedom of speech and against publication censorship. It was named after the Areopagus, a council of ancient Athens known for free speech. It remains one of most influential works on freedom, press freedom. What inspired John Milton to write the epic Paradise Lost? Option D, religious faith and the story of the fall of man. Milton's strong Puritan faith and the biblical story of Adam and Eve inspired him. He aimed to justify the ways of God to men. Justify the ways of God to men. His blindness and political turmoil also influenced the theme of suffering and redemption. Which literary genre is John Milton best known for? Option C, epic poetry. Milton is most famous for his epic poem Paradise Lost 1667. Epic poetry is a long narrative poem about a heroic figure and grand themes. His other epics include Paradise Regained and Samson Agonist is Paradise Regained, Samson Agonist, also 1671. What were some of John Milton's views on education? Option D, education should be secular and practical. Milton emphasized a well-rounded education that included language, science, philosophy, and practical skills. He argued that education should be prepare individual for active participation in society rather than just theological studies. His essay of education 1644 outlined his educational philosophy. In which country did John Milton travel for his European tour? Option B, Switzerland and Italy. In 1638 to 1639, Milton traveled France, Switzerland, and Italy. He visited Florence, Rome, and Venice, meeting scholars and artists. His journey was cut short due to political tensions in England. Which personal loss deeply affected John Milton during his early life? Option C, death of his friend Edward King. एडवर्ड किंग मिल्टन के करीबी मित्र थे जिसकी 1637 में मृत्यु हो गई। मिल्टन ने उनके सम्मान में लिसिडस 1637 में एक एलेजी लिखी। इस कविता में धर्मगुरुओं की भ्रष्टता की आलोचना की गई है। How many daughters did John Milton have with his first wife Mary Powell? Option A 3, Milton and Mary Powell had three daughters, Anne Milton, Mary Milton, Deborah. Anne, Mary, and Deborah. What was John Milton's most significant contribution to the political pamphlet genre? Option B, The Tenure of Kings and Magistrates, 1649. Published in 1649, the pamphlet justified the execution of King Charles I. In which year did John Milton publish The Tenure of Kings and Magistrates, defending the right of people to execute a guilty sovereign? Option C, we will know, well known, 1649. Which pamphlet did John Milton publish in 1649 as a defense of the regicide of King Charles I? Option A, Iconoclast, in 1649, was written a rebuttal to Icon Beslike, which glorified Charles I. Milton attacked the image of Charles and the martyr as defended his execution. 1649 में मिल्टन ने इकोनोक्लास्ट में लिखा कि इकोन बेस्लाइक के विरोध में था। इन्होंने किंग चार्ल्स फर्स्ट को शहीद मानने की धारणा को खारिज किया और उनके निष्पादन का समर्थन किया। When did John Milton become totally blind? Option B, 1652. What tragic event occurred shortly after Milton's wife Mary died in 1652? Option D, Milton became completely blind. In 1652, Milton's first wife Mary Powell died during childbirth. The same year, Milton became completely blind, marking a turning point in his life. In which year did John Milton marry his second wife, Catherine Woodcock? Option B, 1656. 63rd Elizabeth Minsula, I think. In 1656, Milton married Catherine Woodcock, but she is died in 1658. Within 2 years, he mourned her loss in his sonnet, Methought I saw my late espoused saint. Methought I saw my late espoused saint. मिल्टन ने 1656 में मिल्टन ने कैथरीन वुडकॉक से शादी की थी, लेकिन 1658 में उनकी मृत्यु हो गई। मिल्टन ने अपनी सोनेट मिथॉट आई सा माई लेट स्पाउट में कविता में उनके प्रति अपने शोक को व्यक्त किया है। हाउ लॉन्ग डिड मिल्टन सेकेंड वाइफ कैथरीन वुडकॉक लिव आफ्टर देयर मैरिज? Option B, 2 years. Milton married Catherine Woodcock in 1656, but she died in 1658 after giving birth to a daughter who also passed away. Her death deeply affected Milton, and he wrote the sonnet Methought I saw my late spouse saint in his memory. In 1659, after the restoration of Charles II, John Milton was, option B, imprisoned for about 2 months. After the restoration of Charles in 16, Charles II in 1660, Milton was arrested for his previous anti-monarchical writings. He was imprisoned for about 2 months but later released due to influential friends alike Andrew Marvell. Which of Milton's works was sold in 1667 to publisher Samuel Simmons for $5? Option A. Paradise Lost. In which year did John Milton publish Paradise Regained and Samson Agonist? Option B. 1671. Both works were published together in 1671. Paradise Regained is a sequel to Paradise Lost, focusing on Jesus' resistance to Satan. Samson Agonist is a tragic closet drama about the biblical figure Samson. Where was John Milton buried after his death in 1674? Option B. St. Gall Church. Milton died in 8 November 1674 and was buried in St. Giles Cripplegate Church, London. This church still holds a memorial for Milton. Who did John Milton consider his master in poetry? Option C. Edmund Spenser. Milton admired Edmund Spenser after referring to him as his poetic master. Spencer's allegorical and epic style, particularly in the Fairy Queen, influenced Milton's own epic poetry. What is the title of John Milton's 1667 epic poem about the fall of man? Option A. Paradise Lost. Option B. Three Shilling. The publication price of the first run of Paradise Lost in 1667 was 3 shillings. This is based on information of John Milton publishing contrast with Samuel Simmons, where Milton received a payment $5 upfront at the of potential of the further for the further earning based on sale. 3 shilling would be considered as a relatively high price for the book at the time. Which work of John Milton was published in 1651 as part of his defense of the English Commonwealth? Option D. Defensio pro populo anglicano. In 1651, Defensio pro populo was a Latin polemic and political argument in support of the English government at that time. Milton wrote in the response to another work by Salmasius. Salmasius. Milton's work was a piece of propaganda that argued in favor of the government position. Milton wrote Defensio pro populo anglicano at the request of Parliament at the time. Milton was Secretary of Foreign Tongues, a position he had held since March 1649. In which year did John Milton publish Artis Pleniral Instituto? Option C 1672. Which work of Milton discusses the rights of the people in governance of the state? Option C the ready and easy way to establish a free commonwealth. Which of the following was a subject of Milton's 1644 publication Areopagitica? Option B freedom of speech and press. I hope you liked this video. We have explored Milton's life, works, themes, and literary contributions essential for all competitive exams in part 2. In part 3, his profound influence, poetic mastery, and intellectual depth make him a key figure in English literature. Keep revising, stay consistent, and don't miss the upcoming part for a complete mastery of Milton. Success in yours. Keep learning, keep growing. Thank you.